The tariffs with sweeping new tariffs.
President Trump just put 150 countries on notice that their tariffs are about to go higher.
Tariffs have exploded into the headlines, and as someone who cares about where my money's going, I had questions. What are tariffs in plain English? Who actually pays the tariff? Me or the country that they target? What happens if the other countries retaliate? And as a regular guy who orders stuff from Amazon, I had some real-world questions too. Are these tariffs going to make the things I buy more expensive, or is this just political theater? And whatever happens, will this be temporary or a new normal? So the engineer in me took over, I dug into the data, and these are the answers that I found. Here's something that surprised me. Tariffs and duties actually funded most of the US government before income tax even existed. Tariffs were first introduced in 1789, but federal income tax didn't become permanent until 1913, 120 years later. So when President Trump commented about lowering or even eliminating income taxes via increased tariffs, it was more grounded in reality than I first expected. Next, I found two helpful ways to understand how tariff values have fluctuated over time. The first and more direct method is to measure tariffs against the value of the imported product itself. You could think of this as the micro comparison method. You can see from this chart, the percentage peaked in the high 50% range in the early 1800s, but has trended downward since. The second way to understand how tariff values have fluctuated over time is a percentage of US GDP, or gross domestic product. Now, GDP is just a measure of the size of an economy, so it's a measure of the tariff size versus the size of the US economy overall. You can think of this as more of a macro method. This is the dark blue graph at the very bottom of the chart. It varied during the 1800s, but has trended downward overall since the 1900s. This chart also shows income tax in the dark red, again starting in the early 1900s and exploding around the 1940s. So in general then, we have shifted from taxing stuff coming into our country to taxing you and I directly. So what exactly are tariffs then? Well, tariffs are a tax on goods crossing a border. The tariffs are usually paid by the company importing the product, but sometimes they're paid by a middleman, like a logistics provider or a customs broker. The payment is made to the destination country's customs authority, and it must be made before the product is allowed to clear customs. So that's what they are, but how are tariffs calculated? I found that it all starts with a code, specifically the Harmonized System Code, which assigns a number to globally traded goods. For example, the Harmonized System Code for leather shoes is 6403, and the Harmonized System Code for gasoline-powered automobiles with engines less than 3 liters is 8703. Now, this code is utilized by over 200 countries, including the United States, China, the European countries, and so on. There are then 3 main ways to calculate a tariff. The first is called specific, which means a fixed amount, such as $5 per unit. The second is called ad valorem, and that's a percentage of the product's value, such as 10%. And the third is a mixture of the first two. For the specific tariff, that's the end of the calculation. But for the ad valorem and mixed tariffs, the value of the product has to be established, and in an agreed upon way. There are, in turn, 2 main ways product valuations are in fact established. Either FOB, which means free on board, which is the value of the product only, as it is loaded onto the ship at the port of departure. Or there's CIF value, which stands for cost, insurance, and freight. This valuation adds the cost of shipping and insurance to the valuation on which the tariff is based. So as an everyday example, a blender from Amazon might cost $100 with FOB tariff valuation or $105 with CIF tariff valuation. To summarize, while there's a system and math under the hood, the intent of tariffs is simple: to charge a tax at a border. Next, we'll cover those new numbers that we've been seeing on the news. Are they accurate? Are they marketing math? Are they something nonsensical entirely? So far we've covered how a specific dollar amount or a percentage-based ad valorem amount of tariff is applied to a good. But who actually determines what that amount is going to be? I found that this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. In the US, Tariffs are primarily authorized by Congress, but the US president can authorize them in some circumstances, such as number 1, national security concerns, or number 2, to protect domestic industries from unfair trading practices. But many countries overall, including the US, are part of the World Trade Organization, which contains agreements to limit tariffs to certain levels. And countries can set tariff limits directly with one another. So it seems there are a lot of guidelines a country can utilize, but it also seems that ultimately it doesn't really have to follow any of them.
I do what I want!
Taking all of these things into account, or not, a country simply then publishes its tariff schedule and theoretically enforces it. Importers then have to pay the published rate or their goods don't clear customs. Now, let's look at the Trump administration's specific tariff formula that has been circulating in the news. The tariff rate for a country would be the US trade deficit with that country divided by the US imports from that country. Here's an example. To get the trade deficit, we'd take what the US imports from China as an example, which in 2024 was $438 billion worth of goods, and subtract what the US exported to China, which was $143 billion worth of goods. That means the US had a trade deficit of $295 billion with China in 2024. The next step then, according to the formula, is to take that difference and divide it by the original US imports value of $438 billion. Now this calculation yields a percentage, and it comes out to 67%. It's certainly not any of the historical or WTO methods that we have mentioned before. So how might these tariffs affect me and you? Tariffs could cause higher prices for imported goods. Companies like Sony Electronics and Columbia Sportswear have made statements that tariffs could increase pricing, or that they have plans to increase prices. But so far, it seems to me it's been more headlines and hype than actual price increases. If you've actually seen prices increase and believe tariffs are to blame, put a link or example in the comments because I'd love to investigate them. It's likely that the ultimate purpose of President Trump's extreme tariffs are designed to drive countries to the negotiating table for better deals. Zero income tax sure sounds good to me, but realistically I'm not holding my breath. I'm Alex Stoermer. I have over 100 financial education content videos available to you now, with more coming every week. Please consider subscribing for those and to help the channel grow. I'd really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.